welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this super cute granny square arm bag from start to finish. We'll go through step by step, making the granny squares, sewing them together, adding the straps, and finishing it off with some D-rings for a super cute polished look. And it also gives you the option to add a crossbody strap if you'd like. Whether you're a beginner or a crochet pro, you're definitely gonna love this project. It's fun, customizable, and absolutely perfect for either a gift or just to add to your own wardrobe. So grab your yarn, grab your hook, and let's get started. Okay, so let's get into making this beautiful granny square arm bag. First off, what we're going to need to create this bag is, of course, your crochet hook of choice. I would recommend anywhere from a 5mm to a 6mm hook, just depending on how big you want your stitch to be. Today I will be using a 6mm. You will need scissors, a yarn needle, and potentially some stitch markers. And lastly, some D-rings. Those are optional. You do not have to add D-rings to your bag, but if you do want to, then you'll need some of those. So of course, first things first, we want to go ahead and pick our yarn colors. I do already have my yarn colors selected, so let me show you what I chose. So this is the color palette that I will be working with today. This is all loops and threads, soft classic acrylic. And we have this ginger color here, this super light pink color that's really cute, beige, and then this baby blue. One of my favorite things to do is blend warm tones and cooler tones and then a neutral. I think it really makes a beautiful contrast. The colors all pop and complement each other. So that's why we chose this today. So this bag is constructed with 4 granny squares that look like this. They're 4 rounds each. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you'll need 4 of those for the side of the bag. And then you're going to need 2 larger granny squares that are 8 rounds each. So you basically just do the color pattern twice to do the 8 rounds. And then the last piece that you need is the bottom of the bag. First, we're going to go ahead and start with how to make the granny squares. So our first color for the center is going to be this ginger color. So we're just going to grab our yarn. I did show how to make granny squares in my last bag tutorial, but I will definitely go ahead and show again. So we're going to need our hook. We're going to start with a slip knot. And then you're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let me just lower this so you can see a little closer. So from there, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the first chain. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull through. And that's going to create a small little circle. If you pull the circle apart a little bit, you can see that there is a hole right in the middle, right here. That's what we're going to be working into. So you're going to chain 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that center hole, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go through 2 loops. And that's our second double crochet. We need 1 more. Okay, so now that is our first granny cluster of the granny square. A granny cluster consists of 3 double crochets. So now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to do another granny cluster. So we'll do 3 more double crochets. We're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And we're going to do that 2 more times for our second cluster. And basically we need a total of 4 granny clusters worked into that center hole. We chained 1 and we're going to do our 3rd granny cluster. and then we're going to chain 1 and do our 4th granny cluster here. Okay, and then chain 1. So now to close the circle, we're going to go ahead and do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that we started with. So you can see that's 1, 2, 3, that's the 3rd chain, that's the top. We're going to slip stitch right into there. And now our circle is closed. And since we're going to be changing colors here, I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to need your scissors to fasten off. And I weave in my ends as I go because I like to be done my project when it's done. So just weave them into the back as good as you can so it's nice and secure. So now we're going to attach our new color. It's going to be the light pink color. So again, we're going to start with a slip knot. And you can attach your yarn any way that you like to. The way that I prefer to, it's just easiest for me, is I find one of the chain 1 spaces and I slip stitch it on. And now it's attached. So now we're going to chain 3 and we have to make our corners of the granny square. So that counts as a double crochet. And then we're going to do 2 more double crochets. We're going to chain 1 and then we're going to do 3 more double crochets in that same space. So now you can see we formed a corner. So we have to do that same thing in the remaining 3 chain 1 spaces. And that's going to form the corners of our granny square and give it that traditional square shape. So again, it's 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets in each of the 4 chain 1 spaces. Okay, so we're coming up on our last corner here. We just finished it up. So we have to go ahead and close the square like we did before. So we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. Now that round is done, so we're going to fasten off so we can switch colors again. This is the last round that I'm going to show you how to do because you're just going to be repeating this round until you have 4 granny squares that are 4 rounds and 2 granny squares that are 8 rounds. Okay, so moving on to round 3, I'm going to grab our beige yarn. So we attached our yarn into the corner. We're going to chain 3. We're going to do our corner stitches, granny cluster, chain 1, and then another granny cluster. Since our granny square is growing, you're going to notice that we now have this middle section. So in these middle sections, we're going to do 3 double crochets. And then we're going to go into the next corner. So we're going to do our corner stitches and we're just going to keep doing that all the way around. We're going to form our corners and then do 3 double crochets in the middle spaces. And then you'll see here, now that I have one side fully done, as you continue to grow your granny square, you're gonna have 1 extra middle space. So this second round had 1, now the third round has 2, the fourth round will have 3, and so on. And that's really the only difference. And again, it's just gonna be your corners and then 3 double crochets in the middle spaces, and that's it. Again, you'll keep crocheting until you have 2 of the larger granny squares that are 8 rounds. And they're made exactly like how I just showed you. And then you're going to need 4 of the smaller granny squares. These are for the sides. And these are just 4 rounds, so these are really quick to work up. Once I have all of those prepared, I will come back and meet you here. So now that we have all the components of our bag ready, the last thing that we have to make is the bottom of the bag, which I showed before. So I'm gonna show you how I came up with the measurements for this bottom piece. It's really, really simple. So I took one of the larger granny squares, and what I did was I just counted how many stitches from corner to corner are going across, which wound up being 26 stitches. So we had to do 26 plus 1 to account for the extra stitch for when we're making the base for this. So basically you're going to chain 27. The way I determined how many rows to do for the bottom panel is I counted the amount of stitches were from corner to corner on the smaller granny square, which wound up being 14. And when I'm doing this, I count from the chain 1 space to the next chain 1 space, which wound up being 14. So I did 14 rows. So now I know when I'm sewing this all together, I'll have the right amount of stitches to sew into. So you'll start with a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 27. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 26, 27. Okay, so we have our chain of 27 here. And as I said before, the large granny square is 26 stitches from corner to corner. We had to make it 26 plus 1 because to start this, we're actually going to skip the first chain and work into the second chain from the hook. So we're going to do single crochets from the second chain from the hook to the end of the row. So we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And we're going to do that all the way to the end of the row. And then you should have 26 stitches. So we're coming up to the end of this first row here. And what we're gonna do is super simple. You're gonna do this for the remainder of the panel. So after you finish your last single crochet and your row is complete, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then just do a single crochet into each stitch until you get to the end of the row. And you're just gonna continue that until you have 14 rows total. So again, single crochet to the end of the row, chain 1, turn your work, single crochet in each stitch till the end of the row until you have 14 rows. And when you have all 14 rows done, this is the end result. So that's going to be the bottom base of our bag. Now that all of our components are done and complete, we can actually go ahead and start sewing everything together. So what we're going to start out by doing is joining 2 of the smaller granny squares together to form the side panel. So you'll do this for both sides of the bag. So you can really join your granny squares with whatever your preferred sewing method is. If you want to do whip stitch, a mattress stitch, slip stitch, whatever you want to do. I particularly like to do slip stitches in the back loops only, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. If you don't know how to do that, I will show you briefly in this video. However, I'm not doing a full in-depth tutorial on sewing, so I would just refer back to my previous video on how to crochet a granny square tote bag. I go more in depth in that video on how to do slip stitches in the back loop only. So we're going to start with a slip knot. You're going to make the slip knot and then you're actually going to remove it off of your hook. And then we're going to start in the chain 1 spaces for both granny squares. And we're just going to insert into the back loops only. And then we will reattach our slip knot to the hook. And we're going to pull it through the 2 loops on our hook. And that's going to attach our yarn. Then I just want to go ahead, oh, Mrs. Nar says hi. I just want to go ahead and move the tail to the back. And then from here, we're going to insert in the back loops only in the next stitches on both granny squares. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch. And then again, we go in the back loop on the next stitch and the back loop on the next stitch on the other square and slip stitch. Mrs. Norris just like plopped on the ground. She's getting antsy because it's that time of the day where it's that time of the day where it's almost time for her treat, so she's getting all crazy because she's excited. It's like she knows once the sun starts to go down, it's almost treat time. Anyways, so we're just going to continue to slip stitch in the back loop only till we get to the end, and we'll finish in the chain 1 space. So now that that's done, you can see it creates a really beautiful seam. So from here we will fasten off and weave in our ends, of course. Okay, so now that we have the side panel all finished and our ends are weaved in, from here we just have to attach the side panel to the larger panel because it's gonna be like this on the side. So we're really just gonna do the same thing. There's only one spot that's a little bit different, which is when we get right into this gap in the middle here. And I'm gonna show you how to keep it nice and closed up so that there's no space. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're slip stitching in the back loop only. We're gonna start with a slip knot. Remove it from our hook. And then we're gonna insert into the back loop only in the chain 1 spaces here in the corner. We will attach our slip knot, pull through, and now our yarn is nice and attached. I'm just gonna move the tail out of the way here. So I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm just gonna slip stitch in the back loop only. I will stop when I get to this little center part here where there's this other seam, and I'll show you how to take care of that when we get there. Okay, so we're coming up on our last stitch here before we get to this seam. So let me just lower this a little so you can see a little bit better. So what I like to do is, because generally we would go into this next stitch here, which matches up with this stitch over here, which can potentially leave a gap right there. I just finished my last slip stitch in this 3rd stitch of this cluster right here, which matches up with this one. So usually what I'll do is I will go back into that same stitch and then go into the seam right here and make another slip stitch. And then I'll go into the next stitch of this granny cluster here and then go into the chain 1 space and make a stitch. And then I'll go back into that 1st stitch of this granny cluster and then go into the next stitch, which is the 1st stitch of the next granny cluster. So essentially I'm just going through 2 of the stitches twice to make sure that there's no gaps when we come across that seam. So now you can see here, there's no gaps in the seam and we're good to keep going. So we're all finished with that. So I'm gonna fasten off and weave in our ends. So basically now we have these 2 pieces here and we want to join them next right here. So we're gonna do that same method of joining with the slip stitch. And then once that seam is done, we're gonna do the last seam, which is going to be on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I will be back once I'm done seaming the panels together. So we have our side panels and our front and back panels attached, and the bottom and the top of the bag are now open. So now we have to attach our bottom panel to the bottom of the bag. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a whip stitch for the bottom because it's a little bit faster for me. So what we're gonna do here is I'm going to just take off a nice big piece of yarn here so I don't run out. It's probably way too much. And I'll go ahead and put this into my yarn needle. And again, this is where the stitch markers come in. If you wanted to, you could definitely attach this to the bag with a stitch marker, but I'm just gonna go for it, I think. I'm going to whip stitch in the back loops only. So it looks like everything's matching up perfectly here with how we counted our stitches and the amount of rows that we made. So now we're coming to the side of the bag here. So again, this is somewhere if you need to, you can definitely add a stitch marker here in place just to hold everything together if that's easier for you. So we're gonna start with the first stitch in the panel and go into the chain 1 space. And since this edge is different and there aren't actual stitches along the edge of the bottom panel, each row of the panel is going to be one of the stitches along here. So it should be 14 altogether. So we'll go on to the next row here. And then we'll go into the next stitch. So I'm going to continue to do this all the way to the other side of the bag, and I will meet you back when we're all done sewing the bottom. Okay, so we're done sewing the bottom on our bag, and I'm really happy with how it came out. I think everything added up right, it looks good, and now we have a nice flat surface for our bag to sit on, which is great. So the last part of this bag that we're going to be doing is we're going to do some single crochet rounds at the top of the bag, and this is to attach our D-rings to the side, which that step is optional. It's if you want to add a crossbody strap to it, then you have that option. And then we're also going to make our arm handles as well. So I'm just going to start right here in this chain 1 space to attach my yarn. I'm going to make a single crochet, and then I'm going to single crochet in every stitch until I get back to that space. I love doing about 3 to 4 rounds of single crochets to the top of a granny square bag when I make them, because I just love the way it looks. So we're at our first corner here. I basically like to single crochet 2 together in the corners. That way it helps the top become a little bit less square. It kind of does a little bit of a decrease in the corners. So I'll insert, yarn over and pull through, and then go into the next corner, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then I just go right into the next stitch and continue with my single crochets. And you're going to do that in every corner. Okay, so we are back where we started. So in this second round, we're going to add in our straps. I want to start my strap on this first stitch of the second granny cluster, and then I'm going to end it on the last stitch of the second to last granny cluster. So again, if you need to use stitch markers here, definitely do it. I have a couple stitch markers here, so I'm just going to add them in here for reference. So we're going to start our strap on the first stitch of the second granny cluster and end on the last stitch of the second to last granny cluster. So that's how my strap is going to be. That's where I want them placed. We're going to single crochet until we get to that first stitch marker, and then we'll go ahead and remove the stitch marker, single crochet in that space, and then we're going to make a chain. Okay, so I wound up chaining 35. That's about how big I want my handle. Again, I'm making mine an arm bag. I don't want the handle too long, but again, it's totally customizable. So if you want a shorter or a longer handle, by all means, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to remove this stitch marker, just make sure this isn't twisted, and then I'm going to insert into that stitch, and then we will do a single crochet to attach it. So now it matches perfectly even with the opposite side. And then we'll continue to single crochet until we get to the other side, and we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So we're in that stitch, so I'm going to go ahead now and chain 35. And we're going to attach it with a single crochet. So now we have that strap there, and you can see they're nice and even here. And we're just going to continue single crocheting now until we get back to our slip stitch where we started. So we went ahead and slip stitched. So now we will go ahead and begin round 3. And there's a couple different things we're going to do here in round 3. So we want to thicken this strap up. It's just a little bit too thin and it stretches a little too much. So I want to add another round of single crochets to the strap just to make it thicker. So you will go ahead and single crochet into the next stitch, stitch after that, and then in the next stitch. And then from here we're going to start to single crochet in the stitches of the actual strap. So we're going to just insert right into this V and do single crochets. And we just want to finish this until we get to the end of the strap, and then I'll show you how to add the D-ring on from here when we get to the side of the bag. Okay, so we finished going across one side of the strap. So again, we're going to single crochet until we have to add on this D-ring. So now we're going to add our D-ring to the side of the bag. And you're just going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side, so I'll show you how to do this one. So I have 2 granny clusters here and 2 here, and this stitch right here looks to be about the middle. I'm not super precise with this. If you want to count stitches and figure out the exact middle, by all means do so. So I like to use about 3 stitches to attach my D-rings. So since this one's the middle, I'm going to attach to this one, the middle, and then the one after that. So I'm going to remove the stitch marker and I'm going to place my D-ring here. It's super simple to attach. All you do is go through the D-ring, go through the stitch, and do a single crochet. And then the same in the next stitch, go through the D-ring, go through the stitch, single crochet, and then in the third stitch, do the same thing. And that's it. It's in there beautifully, and it blends right in. And then we're just going to continue to single crochet, and that's it. Super simple. So I'm going to continue on single crocheting here in this other side of the strap. And then when I get to the next corner, I'm going to attach my second D-ring. And that's going to be it. When you get to the end of the round, you're just going to slip stitch into the starting stitch of the round, fasten off, weave in your ends, and the bag is complete. So I'm going to finish this and I'll meet you back when the bag is done. How beautiful is this bag? I'm sorry, but I'm obsessed. I will be using this constantly. It's the perfect size. You can throw so much into it. You can customize it, make it whatever color palette you like. And the D-rings just kind of give it this nice little touch. Spruces it up a little, and then that way you can add a strap to it if you'd like. You can make these straps thicker, longer. You can make the granny squares bigger, smaller. Literally whatever you want to do with this bag, you can do. That's what I love about it. And that's it. Your super cute granny square arm bag is all done. I hope you had as much fun making it as I did. If you try this project, tag me on Instagram and let me know, or leave a comment below because I would absolutely love to see your version. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves crochet too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Happy crocheting. Bye.